Your package is today, you're like, I tried all that left, I did that, not
Relationship development scheme, which mentions started in her project as their beneficiary.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Changemakers Showcase 2020. It's been over 10 months since we at the F.A.I.R project opened up applications for the 2020 batch of Changemakers. Our world has changed many times over since then, and we're now in November for the final 3 days of the program where our Changemakers will present their thoughts and ideas to the world. Our Changemakers come from all corners of India, from Kashmir to Kerala, from Gujarat to Assam. There are over 19 Indian states represented amongst our Changemakers. Among them, we share about 7 different religious beliefs, cover each of the ages between 18 and 28, and are representative of almost an equal number of men and women. Through this journey, we have had the pleasure of interacting with wonderful friends who have helped all the Changemakers view our world from a lens that is not so common, but one that is critical to be acknowledged. From Krishnendu Bose, a national award-winning documentary filmmaker, to Kamla Bhasin, one of India's leading activists for gender equality with over 50 years of experience behind her. We've also had Julia Ruckledge, a professor at the University of Canterbury, working on the benefits of micronutrients. Sonia Randhava, the founder of Coalition of Everyone and an advocate for citizen assemblies. Zaina Anwar, who has been leading Sisters in Islam and Musawa, which are the world's largest women organizations for reclaiming Islam. Paula Stone-Williams, a pastor, a counselor, and a proud trans woman. Caroline Casey, creator and founder of the Valuable 500. Rajesh Avasti, a former member of the Right to Education Advisory of the Ministry of Human Resource Development, which is now the Ministry of Education. And most recently, Violeta Bulc, former Deputy Prime Minister of Slovenia and former European Commissioner for Transport. It's been an absolute pleasure to host such wonderful people who have not only taught us the importance of diverse perspectives, but also ensured that our interactions were fun and tremendously engaging. Today, we've got another 3 of our friends who have, in more ways than one, participated in and supported the vision of the F.A.I.R project. While most of you know them directly or indirectly, let me quickly introduce them for the benefit of those of you who do not. We have Eric Falt, who is the Regional Director and UNESCO representative for the UNESCO New Delhi Cluster Office that looks after South Asia. He was also amongst the first people who heard about our project and was pivotal in helping us build a partnership with the UNESCO New Delhi Cluster Office. We also have Rosalia Arteaga, the first woman to have held the positions of President and Vice President of the Republic of Ecuador, and a wonderful human being who is now dedicating herself towards helping young adults become better leaders. And we also have Juan Pablo Ramirez-Miranda, the head of social and human sciences at the UNESCO New Delhi Cluster Office, with whom we hosted our very first F.A.I.R dialogue and who has since then regularly interacted with and guided our Changemakers. But before I call upon them, I would like to play a quick video to introduce the Changemakers to all of you and give you a glimpse of the various topics that they will be addressing during their talks over the next few days, all geared towards a more equitable and fairer world. If you can have the video, please. I just want to say that that's just a fantastic lineup to look forward to. But that's all starts tomorrow and day after when all of them speak for the here and the now. Eric, I'd like to invite you to come and speak with us. And before you do, I do want to tell you that we're already up to about 1,000 viewers. So clearly there's a lot of excitement about the FAIR project and what all of you have to say. So Eric, all over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Ramit, and a good evening to everyone, and particularly to the 32 young participants of the FAIR project. As you said, it's a very impressive lineup that we just saw. I'm pleased to be here today with you to address, in fact, these change makers, but also many others throughout India, because quite clearly, it's a cliche to repeat it, but it is the youth who truly hold the key to a more resilient and sustainable today and tomorrow. There's no denying that 2020 is a very unique year in the history of the world and in the history of the United Nations. As we actually celebrate the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, we are faced with an unprecedented crisis. This year marks the start of the decade of action to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. It is a critical period to advance a shared vision and accelerate responses to the world's gravest challenges, from eliminating poverty and hunger to reversing climate change. But quite clearly, this year, the spread of the coronavirus turned a public health emergency into one of the worst international crises of our lifetimes, with many ramifications. With respect to the SDGs, in many instances, it is a case of one step forward and probably two steps backward. Therefore, we must be familiar with this ambitious agenda, being a continuous challenge and a work in progress. And this year, we have been particularly hard hit. According to the Sustainable Development Goals Report 2020, released by the UN Department of Economic and Social Affairs, the 15-year global effort to improve the lives of people everywhere through the achievement of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals was already off track by the end of 2019. And in only a very short period, the COVID-19 pandemic has unleashed a more complicated crisis, causing further disruption of the SDG progress, with the world's poorest and most vulnerable affected the most. And perhaps to bring to light the gravity of the situation, I would like to highlight some of the key findings of this UN report. It shows that an estimated 71 million people are expected to be pushed back into extreme poverty in 2020, which will be the first rise in global poverty since 1998. We also learn in the report that underemployment and unemployment due to the crisis mean that some 1.6 billion already vulnerable workers in the informal economy, that's half the global workforce, may be significantly affected, with their incomes estimated to have fallen by 60% in the first month of the crisis. I'm not sure anyone has seen or knows about these figures, but they are very important. We see also and learn from the report that more than 1 billion slum dwellers worldwide are acutely at risk from the effects of COVID-19, suffering from a range of ailments, a lack of adequate housing, no running water at home, shared toilets, little or no waste management systems, overcrowded public transport, and limited access to formal health care facilities. An important element that I want to underline also is that women and children are among those bearing the heaviest brunt of the pandemic. Disruption to health and vaccination services and limited access to diet and nutrition services have the potential to cause hundreds of thousands of additional under 5-year-old deaths and tens of thousands of additional maternal deaths in 2020. In parallel, we see many countries reporting a surge in domestic violence against women in particular. School closures have kept 90% of students worldwide out of school. That figure is perhaps better known. That represents 1.6 or 1.5 billion students, and it has caused over 370 million children to miss out on school meals they very often depend on. Lack of access to computers and the internet at home means remote learning is also out of reach for many. And as more families fall into extreme poverty, children in poor and disadvantaged communities are at much greater risk of child labor, child marriage, and child trafficking. In fact, the global gains in reducing child labor are likely to be reversed for the first time in 20 years. I'm sorry for underlining these very grim and hard-hitting facts, but they are important. They do represent the situation as we already know it. And our collective response to the pandemic must be very focused, because it can also help with what some call the Great Reset, where we build back a better and more inclusive society using, of course, the fundamental principles of the SDGs. When we talk about that, we often hear people say that we're all in this together. But is it really so? As part of the social contract with the state, any state, we agree to live under common laws and exercise the same rights as every other citizens. But it's quite clear that the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the cracks in this social contract, again, wherever we may live around the world. For example, access to information about this pandemic has not been equal. The access to resources to seek protection from the disease has not been equal. And unspoken here is the dispensability of the lives of migrant workers and workers in the unorganized sector, whose sheltering does not take place in a, let's call it, bourgeois household protected from the effects of the pandemic. At the same time, safety protocols are not accessible to everyone, especially, again, those people living in densely populated areas or areas plagued with conflicts and violence, those who are the most vulnerable. Therefore, while countries consider their post-COVID policy options, it is extremely important to rethink, re-engineer, and renew the social contract between the state and its citizens, keeping the principles on which the SDGs were established in mind. Refocusing on what we call the 5 Ps: people, planet, partnerships, prosperity, and peace, feels particularly relevant this year, given their clear and intentional alignment with building resilient and sustainable societies. The SDGs call for a spirit of strengthened global solidarity. Problems that transcend geographies and sectors require a similar cross-border, inter-sectoral collaboration. And the good news, again, all over the world, is that we're seeing a variety of players step up for the SDGs. And that's why we're meeting today, the segment, I think that where we're seeing the most enthusiasm is probably the youth. Even during these difficult times, we have seen that the youth have shown natural resilience in a way. But while we navigate uncharted waters during this COVID-19 pandemic, we need to talk about it a little more. We need to commend the efforts of youth who have put the community ahead of themselves. We've heard, of course, again, from many youth activists. One can think first and perhaps foremost of Greta Thunberg advocating for climate action online, but also to other interesting initiatives. I'm thinking of a 16-year-old Indian schoolboy, Lakshya Subodh, who has prepared a COVID-19 curriculum to train rural women on the perils of the COVID-19 pandemic. So truly, we see exceptional grit and leadership exhibited by many youth around the world. This is important, as governments alone cannot be expected to achieve the SDGs. After all, the social contract is a two-way street. Civic engagement is about feeling the responsibility of owning the social contract in your society and also doing something good for your community. We need to make sure that we're not just the beneficiaries, but also the agents of change. And your generation, and here I'm clearly addressing all of the young change makers, your generation has the opportunity to do what has never been done before. By propelling the SDGs forward, you will also ensure that it never has to be done again, that these are acquired gains. The SDGs go beyond the coping capabilities of any single country, government, or organization. And as I said, that is why we need a new social contract to hold leaders and their people mutually accountable. There is among the youth a general compassion, I think, and tenacity for accelerating the progress towards the SDGs. And today, as we discuss the road ahead, we must set aside the skepticism and hopelessness that COVID has brought us all and try to lift up the hope that is available to us through collective action. We are at a tipping point. The decisions we make now and the actions that follow will truly determine the course of life in year one AC being after coronavirus. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eric, for that. I think from my perspective, COVID is obviously a disastrous situation. It's something that is, it's terrifying as to what it's done all across the world. But as what you said very rightly, it also brings with it the kind of hope that if we were to take action right now, this is the time when people will listen. This is the time when meaningful change can actually take place, because people are realizing where the world has actually reached. And if we don't do something right now, I think it is for all of us, all of the youth, all of you, every single individual to take things in their own hands and with respect to their own thoughts and their ideas and get out there and try and do something. So thank you so much for that, Eric. I think extremely useful for everyone to hear that. And now I'd like to invite Rosalia, who has been so gracious with her time with us, having interacted with us last month as well with all the Changemakers, where she directly answered the questions of the Changemakers. And I know for a fact that a lot of them are looking very eagerly towards hearing what she has to say. So Rosalia, all over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Ramit. And I'm happy to share these moments with all of you and also with my colleagues from UNESCO, and the possibility to talk a little bit about some issues that we want to highlight in the middle of this darkness that it seems to be this pandemic situation in all the world around. As you know, I come from Latin America. Probably Latin America had been most affected than other continents, probably because we were not prepared at all, especially in economic issues. But in terms of what to do, how we can envision the future, I try to be optimistic about the future, trying to figure out how young people can behave during these days and during the next months and years. I'm happy to know that most of the people that are attending this event are young people between 18 to 29. As I told you before, I'm leading an initiative to prepare young leaders from 18 to 35 to be part of the change, to be part of the solutions. And as you know, I am talking about educational issues and how education can be a way to go through and to go away of this dark situation that we are living now. And I also want to envision a global world. The combination between global and local give us probably the opportunity to preserve identity and to be in a more pacific world. As many times I said, we are trying to bring up neologism in terms of language issues, because global is a word and local another one, but to be part of this new vision of life. The local means the identity, the way how we behave, how we eat, the food, the gastronomy, the fashion, the religion, the culture. And in terms of globalization, we are using the tools that the global advances can provide us, like the connectivity that we are using now. Dr. Eric says something about that never in the past we had the amount of information that we have now, the possibility to know about how the pandemic, the coronavirus is going on through the world, and how the scientists are trying to to improve old medicines or to create new medicines or to create a vaccine. And we had most of the information in the different parts of the world. Then we are using the global tools in technology, in advances of science, of course, about how we feel this global town that it was envisioned in the past century, and also about how climate change can affect all the world. We are living in a communicate world with lots of things in common and lots of difference too. Then the approach to the situations that we are living has to be a global approach. I love to say that I'm a global citizen because I love to travel and to know other people and to know a lot about others, but I want to preserve my identity. Then the global approach could be a good tool in these moments that we are trying to find a way. And of course, I put a lot of emphasis on education and the quality of education that we want for everybody. I know the statistics about what's happening now and how hard is it to maintain the quality and the inclusion of education around the world, especially when we know that we don't have all the tools like the devices, the computers, the iPads, the iPhones, or also the connectivity. Not all the homes, all the families have the connectivity that we need to have a good quality of education and to have the contact between teachers and students. Of course, we know that. And we know also that another big problem is the lack of preparation of professors, of teachers, because it's not the same to give a class in a presential way or to do it online or on a distant process. We find that the governments, the ministers of education has to be very creative at the hour of combined possibilities between the new technologies like online technologies, even to prepare the teachers, the professors, but also to use some that probably we can feel that are old-fashioned, but they can provide some results like tele-education, education using the television, or radio education even now. And I know for sure that in many countries, the alternative is use a combination, a mix of all these tools to arrive, to provide, to be more inclusive, not letting anybody behind. And it has to prove our capability, our possibilities to innovate, to use, to mix, to combine the different tools to achieve the goals that we are planning. I know for sure that when we are talking about the SDGs, we are behind in terms of education. The number 4 about education, we are not going to achieve that, to have quality education for everybody. In terms of women's rights, we are also concerned about what's happening, because not only the situation of poverty, people that is in poverty, but also what's happening with labor, with work for women. A lot of women, even in countries like in Europe or United States, a lot of women are leaving the jobs because they have to stay at home, taking care of about homeschooling or about how to provide a guide to the small kids at home. And usually the women are leaving the jobs, not the men. And also because of the economic possibilities, many girls, students are leaving school, not the children, the men especially, because families decide sometimes to privilege the boys to go to school and not the girls. And about what's happening in at the interior of the homes with the woman that is in a bad position and suffering situations that we consider that they were not anymore in homes, but now it's showing the worst face of violence, especially violence against women and small kids. We know all that. The diagnosis and the numbers are terrible. But in the other hand, we have to make proposals, what we can do, how young leaders can get involved in change habits, in change perceptions, in provide solutions, and not only resilience, but also solutions, very creative solutions to work in this chaotic world, in this world that appears like with a big darkness and without any light. But I strongly believe that young people and young leaders, well prepared and with a lot of desire to make the difference, can do in this world. And I think you, Changemakers, in this F.A.I.R project, are trying to build solutions. These solutions that had to be with the elemental needs about food, about water, about education, but also with other kind of solutions that provide new fields of labor. For example, for young people. Before pandemic, I saw a study that was done in Canada about what are going to be some fields of labor, of work for young people. What are the new fields? Because probably we study something at university, and when you finish your career, the world is different and the needs are different. How we can prepare the young people to be active and not get paralyzed when the shock came or the situation or the crisis came. Well, I know for sure that in schools and high schools and university, we have to prepare the young generation for uncertainty because you never know what's going to happen. We never imagined some months ago that we are going to be isolated at homes, that we cannot do some socialized activities, that we are going to work more by internet, by remote situations, that we were not in the possibility to travel, that we were not going to do this and that. Then we have to prepare the young generations for uncertainty, and also be prepared for the change. I like the vision of Changemakers because, of course, we are going to be in a permanent, constant change, more now than in the past, because the circumstances and the situations had a lot of variation. Then we have to think about which one are going to be the professions in the future. A lot of them have to, I'm sure that has to do with green jobs, how we can work with this amount of garbage that we are creating. At the beginning of the pandemic, remember that we had a certain hope about how the habits and the behaviors of people are going to be in terms of we are not mobilizing from one side to the other. We are using less gasoline. We are using less vehicles to mobilize ourselves. Then suddenly the air started to be a little bit more clear and clean. And we saw the oceans with the recovery of some kind of fishes and fauna. And we think, okay, that's an opportunity. But after that, it came the amount of waste, especially plastics, that we are using to prevent contact, to discard, to not use again because of the concerns about to be contaminated or a contagious issue in the use of all these tools. And then again, we feel that we are losing the battle against climate change. But in other hand, we feel that we have to be more propositive, and probably the idea to find new jobs about how to work with these climate change situations. These green jobs could be a solution in the future. Then I think teachers and people that are preparing young people, we have to talk more about the possibility of green jobs, how we can manage it, how we can create new jobs, new opportunities, work opportunities, but also solutions for the big crisis that we have in climate change. We also are thinking a lot about mental health, and how the isolation and the uncertainty is affecting especially kids and young people in terms of mental health. Then it will be a lot of opportunities to work on mental health, how we can handle it, how we can create these spots of nostalgic vision about what happens, what could be, what can we create in terms of mental solutions for the new generations. The other thing that, and the study in Canada mentioned, is about how we can create a more simple world. Then expert in simplicity, probably we can talk about it for a long time, how we can live without all these things, the amount of situations that we are living now, how we can simplify the world of the future. It can help the issue about how we can handle climate situations, but also mental situations, how we can discard a lot of things that are making noise in our minds, that are making noise in our souls, that are making noise in our lives. It could probably open a big spectrum of job possibilities for young people. But it is also good to think in the a lot of possibilities in medicine that has to do with situations in family, the situations of people that are dying, unfortunately passing away, and how family has to be supported in these kind of situations, not only because of COVID-19, but also because of people living more, and how the family has to deal with these elderly people, and has to be done a lot of things in a very nice way, and in a very human way, to support elderly people, and to combine the possibility to improve quality of life of elderly people, but also provide opportunities of job for young people. There are some ideas that I put on the table that maybe we can talk in a different session ahead, but the idea is to think not only in the bad situation that the pandemic is creating, with the lack of opportunities for people, with death, with people with sickness, with no jobs, with no opportunities of education, with the diminish of the quality of life for lot of people, especially in countries, not developed countries like most of Latin American countries, but of course in many parts of the world. But how we can think and envision a world of possibilities. That's the big issue. How we can envision a world of possibilities, how we can create opportunities for young people, especially for young people, because you are the ones that are taking the lead. You are the ones that are creating opportunities, that are thinking about solutions, and probably us, the people that has some experience, we can provide some ideas, but you are going to develop the ideas, not us. We can provide some signs, some tips, some experience about what happens in the past, vision, the future, but you are going to create this vision of new future. You are going to create this new world, and you must take this problematic situation like an opportunity to go forward, to create solutions, to create possibilities, to be more inclusive. The connectivity provide these possibilities to be in touch with young people from other parts of the world, to stimulate one to others to create this kind of solutions. Then my message is, we have problems. Of course, we have big problems. We have situations that you were not facing. You didn't have the possibility to face it in the past, but we are now with this situation. Then from this, we have to create a new world, to create a more inclusive world, to create more opportunities, to put you, the young people, in the possibility to be the leaders of the change. And the change has to be for good. That's my position now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rosalia. And I do want to say this again, and I know I've said this to you before, but I think the most wonderful thing that I find about you is just the practicality of your hope. And I know I've used these words before, but it's wonderful for you to be able to see so many things, the number of things that you see. And I think that's something that everyone needs to learn, because when we look at our world, unfortunately, for many of us, we only look at a few things that are in front of us, or the things where our mind can go. But to have the ability to be able to see all the interconnected aspects of our society, and then to be able to give all of them thought, and then, as what you've done very rightly, is to tell them, the youth, that you've got all of this before you. Look at the kind of spectrum of things that you have, that you can be looking at. Find what you really want to be contributing towards, and go ahead and contribute. So, Rosalia, thank you so much for sharing that with us and joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. We also have JP, who's on call, and I would want to invite you now, JP, to talk to us, to the Changemakers and our audience. You've been an integral part of the project right from the start, and it'll be wonderful to hear what you have to say to all of us today. So, JP, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ramit. It's a privilege to be here. I mean, first, I can explain how honored I am to be speaking in this same session after Eric and after Dr. Arteaga, to whom I have a lot of appreciation to. Just as a little side note, Latin America has only had 10 women president, if I'm not mistaken, and we have just heard from one of them. So I am extremely pleased to be hearing her inspiring and beautiful remarks in this forum. And thanks to you, Ramit, and thanks to all of you who are watching us. It's been really a pleasure for UNESCO to support this edition of the FAIR project. It's been delightful to see all the process that you have all been following voluntarily, making the most of this time. As I was discussing with Ramit, changing from the presential program that you had applied to this online, much more extended program that you have committed to. I cannot finish to express my appreciation and admiration, because I know it hasn't been easy for all of you to deal with your studies, responsibilities, work, family, etc. during this time. And you managed to continue on this path. I was extremely excited to see the videos from presenting your, the publicity of your presentations that will come in the coming days. I hope I will, if not live, I hope I will be able to see them all, because, I mean, this is all about how, just like Eric and Dr. Arteaga were saying, like, having you develop the ideas and the solutions and be the leaders and the change makers to address all of these green challenges that the world is facing right now. And in reality, I am very excited. And again, I mean, I have to begin by thanking the 81 Foundation for allowing UNESCO to share its vision on the Sustainable Development Goals through this FAIR project, and with all of you participating in this. As the fellowship comes to a close, we are very happy to see the completion of this new crop of leaders who will help us, not only the UN, but us as humanity, to accelerate the progress towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We really hope that you have gained valuable knowledge and skills, and I'm sure that you have, and made discoveries of common interest, resulting in ideas and partnerships for self and for the development of our societies. And I'll be very pleased to watch your presentations in the 2 coming days. Growing up, as we all have, in an increasingly interconnected world, young people like you understand the importance of solidarity maybe more than anyone before. And this pandemic has shown us that solidarity is really the key word. I think I emphasized that from the first time I addressed you, and I am extremely pleased to see that you are willing to address all these social challenges. Like the COVID-19 pandemic, we see conflict, we see violence, we see growing inequality, we see, of course, climate change. And all of this disregards national boundaries. That's why my message today is to keep, it's in line with what Dr. Arteaga was saying of having this global mentality. The boundaries today mean very little. Of course, our action has to be at the local level, but we need to think of that. Just like for the pandemic, you have heard many times, and the first time I heard that was as a quote from the United Nations Secretary General, who said that at this point, we are as strong as the weakest health system. Because of course, like to control this type of global pandemic, everything has to be containing it, right? So in that same sense, when we talk about conflict, violence, inequality, etc., I think that none of us is safe unless we all are. And I'm sure we're all conscious of the fact that the future of our communities depends on building a peaceful and resilient world. This pandemic has shown us that the Sustainable Development Goals are really interlinked and interconnected. And to build a peaceful and sustainable world, we need to work on all of these fronts. Therefore, I think that it's imperative that you will be occupying spaces across all sectors of societies and of society and your communities to decide what kind of future you will inherit. And I really hope that as you close this chapter, you will continue to work towards gaining those spaces. While youth and future generations will shoulder much of the long-term economic and social consequences of the crisis, because that's a reality, we, the younger generations, are the ones to take the consequences of everything that's going on and that has been going on. We need to apply a youth and intergenerational lens in our crisis response and recovery measures across also the public administration, but also the actions of the civil society. And this is of the utmost importance. We need to claim those spaces to ensure that there is this intergenerational dialogue and that your solutions are incorporated into the equation. That's why UNESCO is working to partner with young people like you to ensure that you are not only heard, but also understood, not only engaged, but also empowered, and not only participating, but leading the local and global action again. We want to support you to break the potential trust deficit that exists with young people by asserting your position and claiming the spaces that are supposed to be meant for you. I truly believe that young people like you can be the best defenders and flag bearers of multilateral organizations like the UN, because your opinions are rooted in the relevant and the now, rather than being played by the dogmas of the past. And that is when we say change makers, it's very important that change is, of course, understanding and having a historical perspective, but knowing that all the challenges that we are facing are the result of the way we have been doing things. And we definitely need to break some dogmas, and that is basically in your hands. Again, I was saying that you can be the flag bearers of the UN and the Sustainable Development Goals agenda, because as Eric was saying, this is not a responsibility only of international organizations, of governments, but of everyone involved. The good thing, as I have been saying with you many times, it's that this is an international agreement between all the states, all the member states of the United Nations agreed that this is the path forward. Now, to make it a reality, it's the work of all of us and the challenge to continue claiming that this needs to happen. So, of course, you know that to be young in this rapidly changing and unprecedented situation means that it is your duty to change and to challenge the status quo, to create the new world order post-COVID, as Eric was saying, in this year after coronavirus, because it's not good enough to get back to normal. In fact, normal is what got us in trouble in the first place. So you have understood where my message is coming from and what is the key point that I'm trying to make. The idea that young people are leaders and change makers, it should not be just a marketing campaign. It is a fact laid out in many findings and reports. For example, according to the OECD report on youth and COVID-19, young people born between 1990 and 2005 have already experienced two major global shocks within the first 15 to 30 years of their life. Of course, the financial crisis of 2008-9, and now the COVID-19 pandemic. And this has affected them directly, for example, as a student or as a job seeker, or indirectly through the repercussions of the crisis within their families, their communities, and their countries. Yet, having weathered these shocks, young people have been at the forefront of calls for a longer-term perspective in policymaking and in building more inclusive and sustainable societies, for instance, through a transition to greener economies. The youth of today exemplify positive disruption. Through your engagement, both offline and online, you are reminding the world leaders that you are watching their every move. And so, much of UNESCO's capacity building and advocacy work in general is focused on amplifying youth voices so that they are heard far and beyond. And that is what we strive to do with this collaboration with Ed1 Foundation and through the F.A.I.R project. By meaningfully training and engaging young people, UNESCO tries to equip the youth with skills and knowledge to understand global and local issues and to become active promoters of a more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, secure, and sustainable world. And we really hope that this will be one of the key results for you coming out of this, that you really understand your role to play for this, again, a peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, secure, and sustainable world. Without one of these, we have no planet B, as they say. So in general, we as Dr. Arteaga was speaking about the global, we speak about what is global citizenship education as instilling the values of creativity, innovation, commitment to peace, human rights, and sustainable development, precisely to ensure this balance between the global mentality and the local action. So in our approach, we treat youth as equal partners and try to create safe spaces for dialogue and engagement. And we hope to continue engaging with you moving forward. In my experience, I have also found that sometimes the UN spaces can be not the most accessible to young people. To this end, whether it's through youth parliaments or in remote districts or grassroots sports initiatives in rural areas, we are trying to ensure that our messaging percolates to the very bottom. And that's why we need your engagement. We need you to be following closely what we are doing and to try to collaborate as much as possible. At the same time, through our wide circle of youth-led civil society partners, we try to imbibe in our programming as many youth voices as possible. As the former Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, remarked, we are the first generation that can end poverty and the last generation that can end climate change. We need to make sure that the 10 years down the line, as Eric was saying, the decade of action for the Sustainable Development Goals, will get us to a point where we have said, we have done it. We have done the most possible and we will continue to do it. We already know that young people are the future, but they need to be empowered today so that there is a future to look forward to. And that's why I never liked the fact that we say only young people are the future. I have repeated that to you many times. Young people are also the present. In the midst of these challenging times, we are faced with the question of how we would do things differently here on. We would definitely need to focus more of our energies in decentralizing our work so that it's more consultative and representative of the diversity of the country. Young people bring resilience, hope, and a sense of urgency to the discussions and deliberations. Most of the heavy lifting of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development will certainly be done by the youth of today in the coming years. It is evident that youth knows what it takes to innovate and to mobilize resources. You are very good examples within your different leadership roles across the country. So the only way forward is to give youth their much deserved seat in the decision-making table so that the leaders and governments can be held accountable. That is what we are advocating for. But again, those spaces of decision-making need to be claimed by young people, need to be claimed by you as leaders. And this is what we hope from you, of course, through your projects, through your work. Those spaces will certainly be open, and those glass ceilings, I'm sure, can be shattered. You are part of the largest generation of youth that has ever existed. Simulations like Model UNs and the F.A.I.R project that you have been part of are designed to empower you to participate in the decision-making processes at all levels. And I really trust that after this process, you know you can bring a lot of value to the conversation, and that you can be a voice towards the decisions that will be made in these challenging times. I hope that the experience that you gain has and will ignite in you a fire to drive change and to push your priorities forward. You are now ready to join young people all around the world who are working towards the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals. Some of you were already doing it, and some of you now know a little bit more about it, and now you have even more skills, even more capacities than all the leadership that you already brought to the table in the first place. And I really wish great success in your presentations, and look forward to staying in touch after this really beautiful and intensive process that has been the F.A.I.R project. So thank you very much for your attention, and it has been great again to be able to address you in this forum. Thank you so much. Back to you, Ramit.
Thank you so much, JP, and to all three of you, Eric, Rosalia, JP. I think it's been an absolutely wonderful and inspirational 1 hour that we've had with the three of you. I think at the end of the day, as what all of you have rightly said, it is about the hope that we show our youth, as well as to what they can do and they can achieve for our world, right? And I think one thing, JP, that you mentioned about bridging the trust deficit, right? I think that is extremely important. Telling the youth that we're all with them, we're all young as well, we're all human beings, as you said, and we're all together in this, right? And they do need to take charge and they need to move forward. It's something that I'm really looking forward to, and I think all of us are doing our little bits in different ways, shapes or forms to try and reach that place where we have a world where everyone is contributing in some way or the other, and it's just absolutely wonderful. Before we leave, Rosalia, do you have any final words for everyone, and JP as well, and then we'll play the video again so that everyone knows what to tune in for tomorrow and day after of all the Changemakers. So Rosalia, if you have final words.
Thank you very much. I want to thank again for the invitation and this great opportunity to share with you young leaders, where I have a lot of hope, because I know that you are working hard to be better leaders and to give solutions for the world, and never lose the hope, the possibility to make the change. That is beautiful, and you can count on me to all these initiatives and to support with my words and maybe with some kind of experience what you can do. Thank you very much again, and it has been a pleasure to get to know Juan Pablo and also Erica, and to share with you, Ramit, and we will talk in the future. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, Rosalia. JP, final words, and then we get everyone prepared for tomorrow and day after.
Thank you very much, Ramit. Again, it's been an honor to be in this event, to hear the lovely speech of Dr. Arteaga, and to share with you this message of hope too, that this commitment that you have is your best capital, and your hard work and your leadership can only be nourished by all of these experiences that you are having. So congratulations. The lockdowns and the pandemic has not been easy in India. And this has been a difficult year for everyone. So I'm very happy that for you, when you will think later on about 2020, you will think about like all the green circumstances, all the challenges that you and your families have faced. But you will also be able to think of your commitment in this process of developing yourself in this platform to become a better leader for tomorrow. Thank you so much to everyone.
Thank you so much, both of you. And thank you to Eric as well to have joined us right in the beginning. However, don't forget to everyone else who's watching to tune in tomorrow and the day after to catch the Changemakers talk about issues that they are most passionate about and firmly believe in can actually change the world. While our Changemakers get some rest and prepare for tomorrow, here's a short video introducing them for those who missed it or have tuned in just now. And thank you and take care. We'll be ending the stream after that. Thank you very much, everyone.